Okay. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We will call the Planning and Economic Development Advisory Committee meeting for Wednesday, April 10th, 2024 to order. Oh, I don't know. Go ahead. Yes, please.
We begin this gathering by acknowledging and celebrating these traditional lands as a gathering place of the First Peoples and their ancestors who are entrusted to care for Mother Earth since time immemorial. We do so respecting both the land and the Indigenous people who continue to walk with us through this world. Today, the county is committed to working with Indigenous peoples and all residents to pursue a united path of reconciliation.
Adoption of the agenda. Do we have a mover? Judy. Brett. Any questions on the agenda? All in favor? Carrie. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof? Seeing none. Adoption of the minutes. Moved by Francis, seconded by Phil. The minutes of the February 13th Planning Committee meeting. Any questions on the minutes? You have a question, Judy, or? Oh, if there's no questions, all in favor? Carrie. Deputations and or presentations. The first briefing is Mr. Joe Gallivan. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman, and good morning, everybody. Just want to give you a quick briefing on some of the things we've been doing since our last committee meeting, and we hope to keep doing this as we move forward this year, because there's a lot on the go. And I want to make sure you're up to date with what we're doing. Next, please. So just some of the things I've been involved with, our team's been involved with since the last meeting. End of February, I had a meeting with the Federation of Ontario Cottagers Association. They had heard about the project we're doing on the community planning permit system across all of Frontenac's and wanted to know more about it, but they also congratulated Frontenac, the townships, on having the vision to do better waterfront planning. So that was a good meeting. In March, Ms. Bolton and I appeared in front of the three townships where we provide planning services, the Islands, North, and Central. We went over the hours that we did last year as we presented to the committee, and specifically the hours by each township and our work plans for next year. And I think they were well received. The councillors appreciated the details that we gave them. It's okay. So also I want to let the committee know that the delegated authority bylaws for undisputed consent is now in place for all townships. So until recently, South Frontenac had been doing this for, I believe, two years, Mayor. Yeah, and they were telling us that 75% of their planning applications that would go to the Committee of Adjustment were now going through this undisputed, and it saved a lot of time, both for staff but also for the applicant, because they didn't have to go to the committee. They didn't have to go through the report process. They didn't have to wait for the appeal period after the decision. So we now have that in place across Frontenac, and I think it's a big step forward, and it will affect our hours as well. We've held 2 pre-application meetings for subdivisions in South Frontenac, and we'll see where that goes. And then on Monday at Frontenac Islands Council, Ms. Bolton released the Queen student report on the design work we've been doing for Marysville. We were going to move forward to do the zoning for the village, but at that council meeting, council passed a motion to direct us to stop all work on anything to do with Marysville. So that project is now off our priority list. Next, please. And specific to the communal services work, I've been involved with the the new utility, both the board of directors and the operating group, the technical group, which is chaired by Mr. McIntosh. We did a site visit, that being the technical group, to a communal sewage plant in Quinte West, just west of Belleville, on September 20th to see a new Terra plant in operation. And I think it was very helpful for the technical group to talk directly to the operators about what's working well, what's not working well. There was a technical group meeting on the 27th where the committee sat down and went over things. I attended in Huntsville the annual on-site wastewater association conference and made a presentation on the success we've had in Frontenac. About 200 people attended my session, and a lot of people were very pleased to see that our county is leading the way in promoting the use of communal services in rural areas. There was a board meeting on March 25th. And then on April 4th, we had a marketing meeting as staff. That was myself, and it's being led by Mr. Farrell. And we'll be taking that work to the committee on the 25th. Now, the marketing is something that is very, very important moving forward, because continually going out there, I keep hearing that people don't understand what communal services are. They don't understand the value. And the goal here is to be able to show that Frontenac is ready to go. The utility's up and running. We've got our house in order. And within a matter of months, with the work the technical group is meeting, we'll have a set of best practices in place. We'll be ready for developers to come here. So very positive that way. Next, please. So on the economic development side of the department, Richard and Debbie have completed the annual trail report and the economic development report, and they're being printed right now. They're coming to see the townships next month. And I believe starting this Friday or next week, is it next week you're going to North? Yeah. Richard will be holding his first office meeting starting in North Frontenac next month, and we'll be doing that across the region. Debbie's been working hard on the Open Farms project. We start early because it's a lot of work to do. The website's been updated, and Debbie's held numerous meetings already with farms and business groups. Also working on a grant application with Frontenac Business Services to support Open Farms. And then for those, some of you may have been at the business retreat at the RKY camp last year, which I thought was an incredible success, thanks to our team and to the businesses who attended. And that's already booked. And is it back at RKY? Yes, good. Thank you, Debbie. October 29th. So maybe you want to put that date in your calendars. I highly recommend that you attend and just watch the businesses talk to each other. It's very, very positive, the work they're doing together. Next, please. A quick update on the K&P Trail. Richard's been working on the rail trail loop market readiness assessment. As you can say, he's been doing site assessments in May. And if you want to be involved in this at all, please talk to Richard. He'll get you involved. Next. So the community planning permit system, we have retained a consultant. Their company is called Planscape. They're out of Bracebridge. We just hired them on Monday. We did interviews. We had a team of from each township and county staff that did the interviews. We're very pleased that they submitted. They've done an excellent proposal with a really clear schedule, below budget, lots of hours. So the goal is we'll do all this work over the next year. We're going to put an Engage Frontenac page up to get the public involved and have a bylaw template. And what I mean by that is they'll draft a bylaw that we can plug into each of the 4 townships, and then staff will work the fine details out with each township on the mapping and where you want it to apply along the waterfront. And if there's specific lakes, waterfront areas, et cetera, that need fine tuning, we'll do that. But again, this is a major step forward, and nobody else is doing it in our region, doing it across. And I want to thank the 4 townships because they're paying for this. They each agreed to invest up to $25,000 on this work. The county budget is not paying for this, except for we're project managing. But other than that, it's the investments coming from the townships. Next. Just want to let you know that North Frontenac staff have been working with us, and we've put up a special page on a particular development application in North Frontenac Township. on a property on a lane called Lafolia Lane on Palmerston Lake. It's got a lot of public interest. There's been a lot of attention to this property. So to be proactive, we have put up a website and it includes all of the submissions that have been made by the applicant, all the studies that they've been required to do, the environmental studies, um, the planning report, justification report, etc., as well as the peer review work. So if you're a citizen in North and you have an interest in this site will be continually updated with when we get more studies. I think it's really good for both council, North Frontenac Council, and for the residents to have this page up and running.
What's the status of this development right now? Is it in the preliminary stages or are we beyond that?
I'm going to ask Ms. Bolt, would you mind? Here.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. So this application has been ongoing for a while. So we just received less than a month ago the second submission from the applicant. So the applicant received comments on their first submission. There was quite a few technical comments that they had to work through. So now they have submitted a second package of information and materials. So currently the technical review is underway. So staff, both at the county and the township, are reviewing it as well as various ministries, Conservation Authority, and we're hoping to have comments back from all of them by the end of the month, which we'll then review with the applicant. But we had promised to the public that when we received the second submission, that we would make available the technical comments from the first round, as well as the applicant's second submission, which is the reason behind the use of the Engage Frontenac page. Just it helps reduce the number of times township staff in particular have to send materials to people. So yeah, so it's still in the review stage.
Just one other question. The Ministry of Environment involved in this as well, or is it fisheries and planning? I'm more concerned about the trout spawning bed in the area.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. So everybody's involved in this. So there's the Conservation Authority, the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry, the Ministry of Environment and Conservation and Parks, and the Department of Fisheries and Oceans at the federal level. So all of them will be providing comments of some sort back to staff as part of the project.
Thank you very much.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Judy?
I just wanted to clarify, I saw that the questions were to be at the end, so I've been saving mine. But if you want them during this time, happy to start off.
At your calls, sir.
Okay. The first one was a point of clarification regarding the Marysville response to the work that was done by the Queen's student report. That piece wasn't obstructed in the township on Monday, and that instead it was a separate motion specific to moving further down the road on the Marysville plan in general, and that we're pushing a pause on that. But the previous motion that to gather the community's input to the 300-page report by the Queen students wasn't part of the obstruction of it. Also, I didn't catch who is it that's giving resistance to the communal services at this point in time? Which level of government, which department?
Through you, Chairman. It's not resistance as much as lack of understanding of what these do. And I have to put my profession right in that book. There's many planners who don't understand that these services have great value to rural sustainability. The basic comment I get from planners who aren't informed is, well, I heard about a trailer park that failed. That's a very common response, believe it or not. And they have failed. Systems have failed. In fact, even New Terra had a system that failed in Picton. And why? Because they were poorly managed. It's not the technology, it's the management. But you have set up a utility here, a public utility that is going to take these over. They're going to be owned by the utility and they're going to be managed and operated by the utility. So the risk of failure or poor management is almost nil.
So it's not a provincial level that the planners are the problem.
Through you, Chair. Well, Sorry, I didn't mean to laugh. No, we still have problems with the province. It's not a funny thing. I apologize. It's just that it's been ongoing. On the planning side, municipal affairs, I believe, have been supportive. Municipal affairs, the Kingston office, I know the last version of the provincial policy statement, they changed the servicing policies to promote more use of communal services. And they did that. They told me this. They did it specifically because the work that Frontenac is doing and the value, they could see the value. But the environmental approvals are still very, very onerous. Thank you. They're very onerous. And I know that both Mayor Smith and Mayor Vanderwall, as acting as wardens, have been speaking in front of the Minister of the Environment to say, your approvals are out of date. They don't recognize that we in Frontenac are going to set up a utility that will manage these systems. This is almost out of a Monty Python show where that if you're a private developer and you want to build a development, doesn't matter how many units, 200 units, 300 units, you don't need an environmental approval, nor do you need an approval of an amendment to a source protection plan. But the rules say if you're taking it over and it's going to be a municipal system, you have to go through this rigorous process. And there's reasons to do it, but I think the argument we're making is we're going to have a utility that will take care of these systems. You need to look at a different process for us that will streamline the approval process, knowing at the end of the day, these systems are going to be, well, we're going to choose the right systems to put in the ground. That's one of the works the technical committee is working on. What are the best systems to put in the ground? And we'll list 3 or 4, for example. And we will be right up front, the utility, not Frontenac County, but the utility and the operating group will be right up front in planning consultation to say, okay, you want to build a subdivision in Marysville, for example, on communal. Here's the type of system we want you to use. And here's what we want in that box. It has to, because we have to operate this long term. That doesn't happen with a private developer. They obviously don't want to make those additional investments because they're trying to make money, and that's fair. But there has to be some common sense at MOE that we have done something that makes a difference and will protect the water quality and protect the health and safety of people using the drinking water.
Okay. And my last question is regarding the office hours, quote, on a monthly basis. And that, do we have an idea of the time and who you want to meet with? I'm thinking it's the business owners that you'd like to meet with when you come to Wolf or to Howe. I just wondering. Right-hand side.
Is there a battery in it?
We have power. Okay. The intent is actually is twofold. We might look to meet with businesses, but we also just want to strengthen our connection with the township staff so that they know that we're available to support businesses. And sometimes, and certainly after the pandemic, just our lack of presence on a regular basis in these township offices where they're front facing, talking to businesses and residents all the time. They don't necessarily think of us because we don't cross their doorstep all the time as well. So the idea is to help strengthen the connection between the county and the townships in terms of economic development by having a presence.
Okay. Just speaking from the Frontenac Islands community perspective, and that I think it would be an opportune time for us to look to advertise it and open it up more from a business perspective, because our time for our staff is extremely tight and that we aren't a big staff and that, but we do have a lot of entrepreneurial people that I think that'd be a far greater response that would get the questions answered rather than going one at a time and that. But that's my 2 cents. And if you gave me the date and time that you want to come, and I'd be happy to do flyers, or you can do flyers and I'll put them up to make sure that it's well attended by our entrepreneurs.
I think it would be more important though to make sure they have an appointment, because if you're just going to open it up, no one's going to get talked to. Go ahead, Joe. Oh, yep, Mike.
That's okay. Since you opened the floor for questions,
Well, I didn't open it for Ed.
Thank you, Fred. Question, take you back to the communal services project. You mentioned it is ready to go, and then later on during the discussion, you mentioned there are certain handicaps or hurdles. When you say it is ready, so if a developer comes today and they want to implement the communal services on their development, can they do that?
Through your chair. So to clarify, when I say ready to go, the utility is now running. It was created in last November. There is a board of directors with 4 members, 1 from each township. And so that's the board. And then it's structured to have, and I hope I don't get too technical here, an operating company, which is like like Utilities Kingston or Perth. That hasn't been formally created yet, but Mr. McIntosh's group is acting as that right now. And the group has expertise in engineering and utilities and water and sewer that they're trying to make, and maybe Mr. McIntosh will want to make a comment after I'm done, but they're trying to set up best practices. But technically, the other thing that we have to do is we did an official plan amendment to the county official plan to say communal services is a priority for us. I'm now going out to Central, North, and the islands to ask them to amend their plans to make it clear to developers that they support communal services, and also for each township decide where do you want them to go. And there may be areas they don't want them, or they want a certain scale of, like, for example, potentially a township will support them in a rural area, but not 200 units on a farm field, more like 25, more of a rural development than a village development. But technically the utility is here. It can take a new system on. Maybe it is a bit early, but I would also say with the county official plan policies in place, there may be enough direction for a developer. But that, as I mentioned earlier, the marketing piece we're working on is crucial to getting interest in having people coming to Frontenac. Did you want to add anything, Jim?
Just briefly, so I think, Mike, we're ready. If somebody comes through the door, we're ready. I think that's the way to put it. And you have to realize that if someone has this concept, from the time they have the concept till they start putting the shovel in the ground, it's probably 2 years. And if we had a developer come forward with a project, that would really help focus what we're trying to do as a group, to set all our procedures in place, to set all our standards and our specifications and determine the pipe we want to use and so on. If we had a partner that we were working with, that would augment and speed up that process. So yeah, we're ready for somebody to come in, and I hope it happens soon.
That's great news. Thank you.
And on that note, though, I would think once we have all the pieces in place, it would be quicker. However, if a developer comes in today, he's going to be 2 to 5 years too before he gets something really approved under the old system.
Oh,
Well, we got to keep going here at some point now.
yeah, but I was under the impression that Sharpet Lake and Verona were the closer projects for communal services. So, and that's been under development for quite a bit of time.
We're at the 3rd stage of environmental assessment.
So
Each one takes about a year.
So there's no end date in sight for that set of projects.
Yeah, well, we hope there is. We're hoping shovels are in the ground before this council term is up. But we have to work with the province. We got no choice.
And so Mayor Greenwood, just to your point, what Mr. McIntosh just said, so South Frontenac now they can put the shovels in the ground, and they know that they don't have to, that the utility will be ready to take the system over. Will be ready. Is ready. Like no, the province will let it. No. Yeah. And the same with the Sharpet Lake project. Maybe Mayor Smith wants to say something about that, but whenever it gets started to get built, the utility will be there to take the system over and manage it.
Go ahead, Fred.
My question is on Engage Frontenac. It's an excellent site to go to, but the majority of the people in my age group probably use Facebook. And if somehow Facebook could have a link to Engage Frontenac, I think you'd have a lot more people actually going in and being interactive with the site. Again, technology is still a thing that a lot of folks aren't into. So I think we need to make it as easy as possible.
Okay, go ahead.
Next, please. Jeanette. Sorry. Just want to let you know we have a new vehicle. We have two older vehicles in our fleet. So this is going to replace the old 2006 Ford Escape, which we bought secondhand from the paramedics. It would have been the previous chief of paramedics vehicle, but it was getting worn out. And it was being used on cottage site visits. So this is a 2024 Ford Maverick. I want to thank Revell for working with Richard and getting a really good price. It's an all-wheel drive. It's perfect. It's actually Consumer Reports voted it best, one of the best 10 new vehicles of 2024. It's got all-wheel drive, so it can handle snow, it can handle cottage roads, and it can be on the trail. And that's why we've kind of put this branding on that notes the trail. And the next slide shows the hood of, and I think this was Richard's idea. This is a great idea. So let's say the truck is out on the trail and they're doing some work, and someone comes up to Richard or someone else and says, "Where are we on the trail?" And Richard can tell them and say, "By the way, if you're hungry, closest spot is here or here or here." So it's a good conversation piece. And so you'll see that out and about. We just got it up and running about 3 weeks ago. I just wanted as an FYI to the committee. Thanks. And that's it. And is there any other questions?
Thank you. I was going to say just a comment, Joe, and maybe planning, and I don't know if development is contentious, but I dare might say it's actually getting worse. I don't know. Everything we try to do now is meeting such roadblocks that I don't know. I don't know. It's difficult and everybody goes, "Oh, well, all the developer wants to do is make money." Of course, everybody wants to make money. Everybody has to make money. That's how we live. But the unfortunate part is the resistance is probably going to drive some developers out. I just had a call yesterday from a developer who says, "I've almost had enough. Like, I don't know if I could take much more." Yep.
Just want to let the committee know that we received an email yesterday afternoon that at 1:30 today, Municipal Affairs is making another announcement for additional changes to the planning approvals process. We don't know what that will be. Maybe it will help, to your point, it'll help some of that, but we'll report back in June on what happens later today if it is of value to Frontenac. Okay.
And now we have Debbie Miller with us, and I guess Richard is in case you need backup. Community Development Officer.
Thank you for that. Just wanted to provide a briefing with regards to the primary health care in Frontenac County. So in 2024, $20,000 was committed through the budget for primary health care professional recruitment in Frontenac County. And in January and February, I started to do some information gathering both in the county and across the province just to understand what's happening in other municipalities with other organizations and things like that. The report that you have before you is intended to have a narrow scope to lay the foundation for potential sustainable solutions for Frontenac County. Next slide, please. Sorry. Next slide, please. Next slide again. Sorry, I started talking. So during the meetings, the information gathering sessions, I met with various organizations, municipalities, both in this region as well as outside of our region. We talked about existing structures, programs that were in place to understand the areas that they were focusing on or had focused on for recruitment as well. Just some of the areas to highlight that came to light as I was having these conversations. Recruitment staff there's different structures in place with various organizations. Some have full-time staff on staff, some have part-time staff, some have contracts, and some it's part of a job or off the side of a desk job. So there's different structures in place with that. The different signing incentives, each organization again is structured differently. Majority are around 100,000 for 5 years. I'm just flagging that for awareness. There are some now that are upwards of there's Hastings is up to 150,000 for 5 years, and there are other incentives, and they keep changing too. So that's just sharing that. Some also offer short-term housing as an incentive as people are coming to the area. And then also there's varying levels of support through real estate, through help with daycare and schooling, through the relocation, the dual support program for spouses as well as they're coming to the region. So there's different structures and incentives in place for families as they're coming. The recruiting fairs, so several of the groups and municipalities and organizations that I spoke to attend recruiting fairs in Ontario, in the province, some outside of the province as well. Several noted that it's good to be there to see who's around and to have a bit of a presence, but several noted there's not a lot of recruitment happening. There's pretty limited success happening through the fairs specifically. In one conversation I had, there was a group from Ontario that attended a repatriation event in the fall of 2023 in Dublin. And they said they've seen great conversations from that. Obviously a bit too early to see the success at this point, but are still having conversations with people that are looking to come back to Canada. So again, that was just an interesting note and just something I just wanted to flag. Next slide, please. So the clinic models, I'll just highlight two here that were the main two that we've talked about. There's many clinics operate as a business. So in these models, physicians are responsible for all aspects of the business. They're responsible for the human resources, the procurement, the property maintenance. And several noted that business is not part of medical school. It's something they do off the side of their desk in their spare time or after hours, 11 o'clock at night, when they're trying to do things. The other model that several talked about were physicians as an employee. So this is an area where they're hired on to a clinic. They're not responsible for the property maintenance. They're not responsible for the human resources. They come in, they're given vacation time, procurement's looked after for them. So it's not their responsibility to take that on. So that's an area that several clinics are moving towards, and just wanted to share that with you as well. Next slide, please. So another area too that medical students learn in a team-based environment. And this is the environment that they want to be practicing in. They don't want to be in their own clinic by themselves. They want to be able to share and bounce ideas off each other or thoughts, or share shared learnings and share thoughts and processes. A lot of the new physicians are looking for around 1,000 rostered patients when they're signing on to a new clinic. Retiring physicians have about 2,000 to 3,000 with their rosters. So just doing that translation, looking for about 2 to 3 new physicians for each retiring physician. So again, the numbers they're quite substantial there when we look at that. Another conversation that was interesting too was talking about the marketing campaigns that some organizations or municipalities are doing. They don't widely promote the incentives for multiple reasons. If you're posting something on social and saying, well, here's the incentive of, $20,000 a year or $100,000, there starts to become, as everybody knows, there's trolls on social, and they jump on that and want to have a different conversation and start asking about many other things, that why aren't you spending here and why aren't you spending there? So from an issues management perspective, just not widely promoting the incentives was definitely something that I heard across multiple organizations. Next slide, please. So there's 4 clinics in Frontenac, and I didn't put them all on one slide because there was too much content. So I broke these out. So just rolling through the 4 clinics in Frontenac County. So Charlotte Lake Family Health Team is part of the Tay River Family Health Organization in Perth. And again, they've got, in the conversation with them, administration's an area that they could benefit from support from. And also recruiting was an area that they would like to see support from, was definitely a conversation. The Charlotte Lake Medical Health Clinic has a signing bonus with the Ministry of Health. The Verona Medical Clinic is part of the Rural Kingston Family Health Organization. They indicated that administration and recruiting were two areas that they would like to see support. They do not have a signing bonus with the Ministry of Health.
Make a comment. Verona is owned by the municipality, and all of the repairs, all of the maintenance, everything on that building is provided by the township.
Thank you.
So that doctor does not have to worry about any of that.
Thank you for that. And then the Sydenham Clinic was the next one that, again, on the list here. They indicated as well the administration and recruiting were two areas that they would like to see support as well as a priority. They do not have a signing bonus with the Ministry of Health as well. And then the Wolf Island Medical Clinic is a slightly different structure. And just a note, in August 2023, the clinic in Kingston called the Frontenac Doctors discontinued the walk-in and patient care services on Wolf Island. Just a note, they didn't lose their doctors, they lost the service on the island. Some of the services are still offered through the clinic, Life Labs, assistive devices, and the foot care. They're looking to attract a nurse practitioner to the clinic as a pilot project for 1 year. The clinic on Wolf Island is a charitable organization, and they do have a board of directors. And they do not have a signing bonus through the Ministry of Health. And again, the clinic would be they're looking to be designated isolated rural through the Ministry of Health would be their ask. So the next one, again, through many conversations, we heard about the administrative burden, and the administrative burden not necessarily just being the patient paperwork, but the paperwork that physicians are doing with human resources, posting a job, hiring staff, retaining staff, doing the property maintenance, so contracts for snow removal, lawn cleaning, things like that, the purchasing, ordering, doing inventory. The doctors have indicated that they're all burning out. They're spending a lot of time on paperwork and things like that. Through many conversations, the indication for doctors in a week is 15 to 19 hours of paperwork on patient paperwork. So this again is over and above that. So basically 2 days of paperwork in a week is pretty much just for a consideration. The administrative support may help the physicians last longer. And that would make the clinics more attractive for recruitment and retention. Next slide, please. So one of the areas that we looked at and is a recommendation in the report would be an operational review of the clinics within Frontenac County. So hiring a third-party consultant that would come in, they would meet with each of the clinics, they would identify issues, efficiencies, and opportunities, potential opportunities for collaboration amongst the clinics. Potentially, I'll just give you a couple of examples that were conversations where somebody could do the ordering for the 4 clinics, where somebody could do the recruitment and have the job postings posted for the 4 clinics. So those were just a couple of examples. The consultant would come back with short, medium, and long-term goals for the clinics, and that would get reported back to the physicians. Reported back to the physicians because they are business owners, and it would have to go through them initially, and then come back to the committee with presenting the next steps back to this committee. A couple of other things that were discussed. Sorry, next slide. I'm sorry. That were discussed during the conversation was the working group. So the Rural Kingston Family Health Organization would be the lead of a working group for Frontenac County that would support primary health care in our community, and Frontenac County staff would participate in that working group. That working group is not structured yet, so what that looked like from a staff support perspective is unknown at this time, but I'm just sharing this piece. Future considerations would be targeted marketing. So a sales kit, if we had a physician that was looking to come to this area, it would be something very specific for them. If their family was interested in the Charlotte Lake area, it would be very specific to that area, offering some awareness to what's in the area. Or if they're looking to relocate in Sydenham or on the island, it would be very specific to each of those areas. Looking also at the spousal support program, That could be something that would be done with a neighboring municipality as a potential opportunity. So just, again, that's something else, because typically a lot of physicians, when their spouses come to the area, they're looking to also have employment as well. So that's another piece. And then a couple of areas that came up throughout conversations was communication support. So adding a link to the Frontenac County website that would be for the careers section that would link back out to the websites for each of the clinics. And then updating webpage content and adding the video that Richard worked on last year with the physicians. Next slide, please. So as we talk about healthcare within Frontenac County, we use different terms. We use doctor recruitment, physician recruitment, healthcare recruitment, and through conversations, we talked about just referring to it as healthcare in our community, because it is more than, oh, we lost my slide, but that's okay. It's more than just the recruitment of those professionals. So referring to it as healthcare in our community. And just a couple of notes to end off the briefing here. Access to primary care is really important for communities to stay healthy and vibrant. From an economic development perspective, the availability of primary care in our communities is one of the key things that people are looking for as they're relocating back here to Frontenac County or to other communities. So it's something that's really important. Through the operational review, ideas to support the clinics will be identified, and it will help with the recruitment and the retention of physicians or other healthcare professionals within our community. Thank you.
I'll just make a comment before questions. Our doctor now, it's changed. They do recordings. They ask you, are you okay? They do not have to file it anymore. A recording goes on your file. So they don't have to do all the paperwork at the end of the day. Judy?
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation. I wanted to give you some feedback, though, from my perspective, that the estimated cost for a third-party consultant of $15,000 to $20,000, I don't think is needed. And that I think these communities have already got where the problems are, what is needed, and the county's only setting aside $20,000 that every year to go towards this. So to use it all on a third-party consultant, I can save, certainly from the Frontenac Islands perspective, it certainly isn't needed. That charitable group is up and running, and it's a turnkey operation. I do know that it could also be a potentially easy win to set a perfect example of how a small amount of money might be able to move it forward, because they're ready to put in their money as well and try to do it as an example and get funding from the province for just a nurse practitioner and that to cover it off. Because as they pointed out, the physicians just insist that the people have to go to town. So instead of one car coming to the island, 40 cars have to leave the island, and that on a weekly basis for this. So to me, that's an easy win if there's a system for getting that. As I said, everything is unique, but everybody has already had something in place, and they do have physicians, and they are businesses when they're being run by them. So I really don't see throwing $15,000 to $20,000 as being needed for a consultant, but I do see getting an easy win as a rural example of how a nurse practitioner can be a game changer within would be a step in the right direction that the ministry might then move forward on and be less resistant to getting things done.
Any other comments or questions? Yeah, Jim?
Have you had an opportunity, Debbie, to talk to any new doctors who've recently located to a new area, whether it be here or someone else, to see what attracted them to go there? I think that might be a worthwhile exercise if you can find those people. I'm not saying it's easy to do, but it's worthwhile. And the other thing that I think might be beneficial, if you have someone interested in coming to the area, it'd be nice to have kind of a meet and greet team or a recruitment team, call them what you want, but somebody with some real estate background that can help them determine where's a good place to find a house, someone that can indicate to them what, sport facilities around, what recreational activities around, and someone that can be from the business community that can probably help steer them to where a spouse might have a job or not have a job. Talk about the schools, talk about those things. What makes our area more attractive than somewhere else? I think that is a worthwhile exercise, but that's once you get somebody to come to the door, and I'm not sure how to get them there. So that's just a couple of comments.
Thank you for that. And through you, we definitely have had conversations around the meet and greets and who would be involved in different communities, and definitely have had conversations around what are some of those things we could see in those communities once they come, like once there is interest. Definitely through the information gathering, we did talk to students that were coming to the end of their schooling, as well as a few people that had conversations. I didn't speak one-on-one to the physicians that had relocated, but some of the things that we heard were definitely the clinic structure. So moving in as an employee, not as a business owner, was definitely one. A lot of people look to relocate and come back to their home community. So where family are, where friends are around them. So that was definitely another thing that we heard from people that we spoke to. Both of those important. And as we had those conversations too, looking at how do we get to students earlier to make them aware, like when they're in high school, before they've even considered post-secondary education, having conversations with them to make them aware of programs, potentially so they can come back to our community. So thank you for your comments.
I just want to, part of this resolution here, how much do we have now? Because we didn't do it just 1 year so far. We've done it a few years, haven't we? 2 years? So there's 40,000 obviously in there sitting somewhere. And before we build that up to 100,000, maybe we should think about, are we seeing any, I know it's hard to say fruits of your rewards, but at least some progress on, are people looking at us or whatever? Mike, Mike has a question first, Richard, and then I'll let you speak.
Not a question, just an answer to Jim. I know North Frontenac and Eddington Highlands have been successful in recruiting a physician. I wasn't involved personally, but I heard that what attracted the physician to come from the UK to North Frontenac is his kids love the snow. They visited in winter and they adored the snow and they just wanted and they love the lakes. So I don't know if Fred has any more information about that, but that's what I heard. Just a reply to you.
Yeah, I participated in that. I participated in that meeting of that doctor, and they decided to stay. They like it here.
I hope it's more than snow. Richard?
I just wanted to follow up on Jim's comments as well. The one of the more instructive interviews that we had, we were speaking with a doctor who's retiring in a few years, and that doctor's son is just graduated medical school, but has no interest in working under the model that his father is, and instead went to another community, another clinic, to get paid more and work less, and that's basically what we're up against with our current model of healthcare clinics in Frontenac.
That next generation, they want to get paid more, work less.
Never heard about it.
I wasn't very smart. I did it the other way around. Francis?
So if it sounds like we have 40,000 that we have sitting somewhere. One of the successes of North Frontenac was to hire a headhunter who then was able to actually go and get a doctor. And I think that's what is missing from the searches that we've all done. I've often said if there was a doctor who was at the door, we could probably get them to stay and sweeten the pots, but it's to get them to the door. So maybe that 40,000 could be used for a headhunter. I don't know what it cost, but I'm sure we could get that information. And maybe that would be a good spot to put some money.
So my apologies, but through you, Mr. Chair, we reached out to a headhunter last year, and they refused to work for us because of the nature of our communities, how difficult they thought it would be able to recruit here. No.
Just going to comment that doctor was most of the work was done by Eddington Highlands staff.
and find out from them maybe how they went about it.
I think there's over 400 general practitioner residency spots not filled this year. It's not the thing that the new generation of doctors are going for, unfortunately. So as I said, to me, the quick and easy win would be to display how nurse practitioners can help fill that void. And that has always been part of what we sponsored at the county level as well. So I make that case that we could have an easy win, that it'd be a good example that the Ministry of Health would pay attention to.
Francis?
You need a nurse practitioner. We need docs. So the 20, but we've got a doc who's 82 years old and wants to retire. So 20,000 is for 4 municipalities.
And I don't have a problems per se of having some money for enticing, as far as saying, this is our region, this is what we have to offer, and these are some of the business models. But I just cannot, with good conscience, add bonuses on property taxation. I can't do it. So I don't see much of an issue with 20 grand, but I do see if it's just going to build up for no reason, then it wouldn't be. But if there's a way to promote the region, promote everything that we have here, and some of the business models that could work, I don't have a problem with that. But I would never support 100,000 to ask somebody to come here and then he'll take off when that money's gone. I can't do that anyway. But so do we have this resolution here that, are you wanting this dealt with? And it says, be it resolved. Are you going to read that?
Sorry, we just need a mover and a seconder for that motion, and the motion is.
Francis moves it, seconded by Fred. Discussion on this. Are we leaving the motion the way it is, or Judy?
The wording is supporting the recruitment of primary health care workers. It's not just recruitment in that it needs to be the application. There has to be a broader, if we're just spending it on recruitment, that's no good. And that if we have opportunities to actually operationalize it, we should be using the funds for that as well.
How would you like to say that? Well,
no,
not if she wants to make an amendment.
Yeah. Okay. Reading through further, that the committee recommends the county council to establish a dedicated annual fund of 20,000 to be included in the 2025 budget for the purpose of improving healthcare in Frontenac County and supporting recruitment and operationalization of primary healthcare professionals.
What does that exactly mean?
Yeah.
That would include if there's an opportunity to actually support getting, whether it's a life labs or a nurse practitioner. Nurse practitioner is one that we have already agreed on, as well as physicians. So if that can be part of what goes on for that initial push, then that should be part of it. Because right now, it's too vague. There's not even a system for communities to access this other than as some sort of recruitment windfall. And we need to focus a bit more on getting things operational, because each of these communities has a clinic. They have a clinic, whether it's a business model or whether it's a healthcare clinic model. But there may be envelopes of funding. It may be that they need to improve or get a receptionist, a medical receptionist for somebody else that would help to make it more palatable. But at this point in time, to just put it towards a generalized purpose of improving, it's too vague, and supporting recruitment, it's very, very, well, we can throw a lot of money at it and we're not going to get a result. I'm looking at more an operational piece.
Do we have a seconder for Judy's motion? We do not. That amendment doesn't carry because, and I was going to speak to it, I think primary health care period would be everything that it would take, whether that's clerical, whether that's a nurse practitioner, whatever. It's all to help improve the health care system of whatever that is.
But at the county level, we've already clarified it was physicians and nurse practitioners only. So
Okay.
just get it operationalized at some point in time, because right now there isn't even a mechanism for it.
I guess the last question I have is, are we leaving the 20,000 to be included? Well, it's just saying to be included in the 2025 budget. I guess county council can make the decision whether it goes forward at that point. So as the motion stands, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Sure. Yep. Staff briefing, Richard Allen.
Yeah, keeping it down. The goal is to, that last one was a tough one to do in 6 slides. This is pretty straightforward. So yeah, this is you've all got the report in front of you as well. We're looking to finalize our agreements with the Mississippi Valley Conservation Authority to purchase the lands associated with the KMP Trail that are in Frontenac County, and we're doing that jointly with Lanark County and Renfrew County, using a similar method that they use to purchase to acquire the CP corridor that goes from Smiths Falls to Mattawa. And so we received a letter from the MVCA back in 2021 indicating that they'd like to sell their stake in the KMP Trail to the 3 counties. Lanark County began to lead the negotiations, and last year, County Council approved purchase for $1 so long as we were free and clear of any encumbrances on title. Next slide, please. So just for context for the committee, this is in the very one of the more northern corners, northeastern corner of Frontenac County, just north of Snow Road Station. And we have of the total 38 and some kilometers that the MVCA owns, we have 7.8 kilometers within our boundary. And about half of that is free and clear on title, and the other half it has some work in front of it for the MVCA to clarify. So the purpose of this, if we go to the next slide, please, is to allow for the transfer of this whole section of KMP Trail, all 38 kilometers, to the counties for management and investment, improving safety, beginning to strengthen that connection between our communities, while the MVCA resolves any remaining title. Some survey work is going to be required in terms of that. In our case, we have 2 title issues, primarily, maybe 3, and the survey is not really required. It's more of a legal quick claim situation that they have to move through. But so the idea is that we will lease jointly the parts of the trail that aren't able to be transferred immediately. So the parts that aren't clear and easy to transfer immediately, those parts of the trail those parcels that are easily transferable would happen immediately for the price of $1. And then we would enter into a lease agreement for $10 a year for the remainder. And then as the staged process moves forward, we'd be able to acquire the remaining pieces of the property, and they would probably work to do that in succession together. This this worked really well for the establishment of the Ottawa Valley Recreation Trail and the Algonquin Trail. Lanark County is fairly confident in this approach working again here based on their experience in that case. And Renfrew seems to support that direction as well. I don't know how that slide got in there, but that doesn't that was not deleted appropriately. Questions?
Has the trail been assessed?
Assess
Condition?
for the condition. Yeah, so there is some work up there in the report. There's some financial implications about estimated work. It's a little low, and so there's some in all of the trail there we have even in Verona right now we have some beaver activity that raises the water levels beside the trail, and so we have to manage that by both working to de-incentivize the beavers from building dams and by raising the base so that when there are issues, it's not a significant issue that damages the base infrastructure.
Do we have to start another fund for beaver relocation and employment? Judy.
We're tight on time but there are questions in that when I read through the report, and I think the devil is in the detail in that. Not only is there conflict with a few owners that are identified in that, but as you said, about half of the trail is free and clear, yet for the bargain price of the lease agreement that could be walked away from within 5 years, and that we're expected to pick up the rehabilitation costs. And as you said, they're low, but even at low, it's estimated at 527,915. That's a lot of money in that for this. And I'm very suspicious as to what the real legal costs are, because in one place in that when they approached us for the bargain to enter into the lease, and that it's the first thing I wondered why, and then part of that is execute all closing documents and things are supposed to be free and clear and unencumbered in that, but it doesn't clarify that at all. And that it talks about the stages include portions of the trail that are ready for transfer without the need for additional legal or survey related validations to confirm ownership rights. So in other words, we take it over without having even a legal survey or that we actually have the rights to it and that. And then the second stage, and that it talks about undertaking specific legal steps, including surveys and obtaining court orders to secure clear ownership that can be transferred, including 90 days in that. So to me, there's a lot of things that caught my attention that I thought this could be more of a bit of a money pit, and that without us outright getting the title of it and the fact that they asked us to do it, there's always the devil in the details. And that's so. Would you like to elaborate?
Certainly, through you, Mr. Chair. Without survey would mean that we already have survey in place. So we understand that the parcel and the ownership of that parcel is, we know what the boundaries are. There's a legal description of the boundaries. The thing is, a lot of the trail, certainly north of Frontenac County in Renfrew, especially, travels through Crown lands where appropriate survey has never been done to establish the boundaries of the trail and that sort of thing. We have a lot less concern from that standpoint in Frontenac. So the parcel boundaries have been established, and so any place where there is a potential conflict or survey work required, that doesn't transfer to us, so that we don't assume ownership. We just operate the trail across those spaces until such point that the MVCA has clear ownership and has a survey for the boundaries. So we're not assuming those costs outright. We're at the moment, we would be sharing those costs, but we would be surveying anyways for land acquisition costs in North Frontenac to achieve our goal. So like would be whether or not we went into this expecting to survey to acquire the former KMP trail anyways with our examples.
Okay, but on page 3, specific, the county would be responsible for some or all of the survey and legal costs regarding parcels of outstanding issues in Frontenac. There appears to be 2 to 3 potential title issues to resolve within Frontenac County, and a significant portion of the MVCA owned by KMP Trail within Frontenac County can be purchased outright. And so there is legal and survey stuff, 2 to 3, and it's not included in the estimate of rehabilitation, right?
So just a point of clarification, the authorization to enter into the agreement of purchase and sale has already been decided by council. So this committee really isn't open to discussing that at all. We're just discussing here the lease agreement that has to be. Council has only authorized the clerk to and the warden to execute any closing documents, which does not include the lease agreement. So that's why we're here today. The actual purchase and sale of that property has already been decided by council, so it shouldn't be discussed here.
So it's just the leasing part. Everybody has read the recommendation. Do you need it read? Yes, Mike.
I have a question. I don't know if it's related or not. Related to the KNP, I read in the paper that North Frontenac opted out of something, not paying $5,000 or something. Is this related to this or something else?
That's not related to this. That's related to a rehabilitation grant application. We can speak about that another time.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, if there are no more questions, all in favor? Oh, sorry. Oh, mover. Jim, seconded by Fran, or Mike, or whatever. If there are no more questions, all in favor? Carried. Debbie? Community Development Briefing. Frontenac Business Survey results.
Thank you. So I just wanted to share some highlights from the Frontenac Business Survey that we did in for the 2023 time, and I'll just wait for. Next slide, please. Sorry. So this was the first year that we've done a collaborative survey with partners. So it was Frontenac County, the 4 townships, and Frontenac Business Services. We met and we had conversation around the types of questions to be asking within the survey. We opened the survey in December and it closed at the end of January. So it was open for 6 weeks. We intentionally opened it over the holiday season because we know some businesses are quiet during that time, and it gave them an opportunity as well to complete it. The marketing for the survey, we use different channels. Our business newsletter that goes directly to businesses. I sent out direct emails to businesses as well. We had road signs up in each of the townships. We use social media ads in Frontenac News, both print and digital, and then the partners also promoted through their channels. We had 73 responses to the survey from across Frontenac County, and within the report, there's a breakdown of how many within each of the townships. Next slide, please. So these were some of the graphics we used across the signs and across social in different places. Putting business faces on the signs and the graphics was really important to us, just to make sure people were making note of that. So next slide, please.
Was there any funding provided to the person in the bottom right corner?
There was not.
Thank you.
No funding provided to anyone there. Thank you. So I just wanted to flag a couple and just make some notes about a couple of things that were of interest here. So the length of time in business, of the 73 respondents, 11 respondents have been in business less than 1 year. and 3 over 51 years. Interesting comparison to 2022, there was 2 businesses that had been in business less than 1 year. So that's a really interesting comparison year over year. Something else, we are continuing to follow up with the new businesses as well, just to make sure that they're connected to our newsletter and make sure that they're connected to different opportunities and that within the county programs and services. So next slide, please. The benefits and challenges to business growth. So the top 4 benefits are the same top 4 benefits that have been for the last 4 years. The lifestyle, supportive residents, supportive business community, and supportive organizations and agencies. So that's just an interesting note. And the top 3 challenges are the same and have been the same for the last 3 years as well. So securing and retaining staff continues to be something that we hear, the insufficient internet access and the cost of utilities. Next slide, please. As we asked the businesses as well, just some highlights here. So 37 of the respondents were self-employed and 35 employ staff. 44 operate in a home-based business and 14 out of owned commercial space, 11 out of leased or rented commercial space. And then as we, Frontenac Business Services was also really interested in the succession planning portion. And that's a conversation we're trying to have more often with people so that people can be planning for the next stage of their business. So 15 were planning to exit, 45 are not planning to exit in the next 10 years, and 11 chose not to answer that question. So just continuing to work to support raising awareness for that. Next slide, please. So through conversations internally with Richard and I have had, just talking about the amount of resources that the business survey takes to produce it annually, and that we're not seeing a huge increase in the number of people that are completing the survey. We just talked about having a slightly different rhythm to it. So having the survey done every 4 years to align with the county strategic planning. We would be going out to solicit feedback for projects and issues as those things come up. So that's separate from this survey. So planning to do the next survey in 2027, but to focus that effort. So that was just a conversation that we've had around a slight change to how we would do that survey. So that's the end of my comments.
Some of those comments at the start were the same the doctors are saying. But where they want to live, what they want to do, all of those things.
Yes.
Fran?
I guess my question is, did we use Engage Frontenac only?
We used Engage Frontenac. They did not have to register in
Okay.
order to complete the survey. So it could be done completely anonymously. There wasn't a login required. So
Okay.
we sent it out through socials. So as a direct link, and I'm sorry, my throat is gonna.
It just seems that 73 is low. So I'm thinking there's got to be another way to get to these folks. And again, maybe Facebook with a link to Engage Frontenac, or I don't know what the answer is, but 73, we've got many, many more than that.
We did use direct links from social media, from both Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn and Instagram. So they were all linked from there. From some conversations that I had with businesses as well, they said, I completed it last year. You know, I'll probably complete and say the same thing this year. So some people did. We had a lot of new businesses that hadn't completed it before, and that's what I just wanted to flag, the 11 new businesses in less than a year. So yeah, thank you for that. And yes, and I think that's partly what spurred the conversation around the frequency of when we do the survey. Thank you.
And just to add on to that piece, the numbers haven't really recovered at all on that since 2019, where it was 190, and then was down to 25% in 22 and maybe a third in 2023. But I do think stretching it out to 4 years is probably too long. I think every 2 years would be better. And quite frankly, the culture of how you get response is different, I'm sure, in every township. And when I want to get response of 100 to 200 people in that, I know how to do it on either of the islands and that. So I think working more closely in that with the community, I've got over 100 businesses on Wolf Alone, and there's several on Howe Island as well in that. And they are very keen to get involved in things of this nature, because that's what we need in that. So I just think that we can do a better job, and I think it needs to be more than just Engage Frontenac. I think it's more than just Facebook in our areas, and that face-to-face can't be replaced. Walking the lineup, posting on the Wolf boat, things of that nature, very straightforward stuff in that. But I would encourage a Q2 year instead of 4-year survey in that, so that you don't get so disengaged.
I think if you want people to get engaged, just put something controversial on there. Richard?
And just to speak to that, part of why we have proposed the 4 years is so that we could dedicate more significant resources to doing more in-person interviews with businesses to capture that information, so that to provide that face-to-face element. On the annual basis, we only have the capacity to deliver it digitally, and so that's part of the conclusion. The other part is, we surveyed everyone to pieces through COVID, and I think there's just a bit of survey malaise right now, and so we probably need to probably have some sort of interactive facility where they can throw balls at politicians or something for their favorite guests or whatever. So that's but ultimately we felt we could dedicate like a significant project every 4 years where we put ourselves on the ground to go talk to businesses that want to be talked to and interviewed, who don't have time, don't want to fill out a form, but want to talk to us. And that was sort of the way we were looking at it.
If this business retreat is really successful, you should have lots of feedback from there.
That's correct. In fact, I believe this committee suggested we should be surveying at the retreat or collecting information from businesses at the retreat, because it's so highly engaged.
Okay, thank you. There is no resolution for that, so thank you for the information, Debbie. Planning and Economic Development Department, extension of draft plan condominium approval. Okay, I need a mover. Francis Smith, seconder, Bill Leonard. Go ahead, Kathy.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. I don't have a formal presentation for the committee. This is a relatively routine request for extension of draft plan approval for a condominium, plan of condominium in South Frontenac for Shield Shores. The applicant had received a previous extension in 2022. It is set to lapse this year on April 20th. He has indicated to us that he is very close to applying for final approval, but has had some delays with Hydro One and whatnot, and is not going to have the final approval in and approved by staff in time for April 20th. So he's here seeking a 1-year extension. It's Mr. Barry Campbell. Mr. Campbell is here if there are any specific questions for him. But as I said, it's a relatively routine request. Staff are satisfied that he has been moving things forward as well as he can. We know from hearing from lots of people that since the pandemic, it's a lot harder to get trades and other professionals lined up to do the work that you need to get done. So he is very close to applying for final approval, but needs this extension so that it does not lapse on him in a couple of weeks' time. So happy to take questions.
Just a comment, this came to South Frontenac Council and all the conditions in there were basically delays from not him.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, that is correct.
Yeah, and they saw no issue with.
Yes, and to your point, this has been to the South Frontenac Township Council, and as indicated in the report, they have provided a resolution that they have no concerns with respect to the 1-year extension.
Does anyone have any questions for planner? Judy?
Yeah, thank you very much. One of the things that came to my mind is, of the 40 conditions that are listed in that, how many has he been able to get finished off?
Well, through you, Mr. Chair, since we haven't received the final package from him, I would turn that question over to the applicant if he's willing to answer.
Yes, thank you. I can advise that all the substantial work, the physical work, has been done to the extent that it can be done. At this point, the main concern or the main delay is waiting for responses from the Conservation Authority, the township, just signing off on that the work is done to their satisfaction. And there's a condominium agreement that's being finalized with, and it's substantially done. I mean, I can't give a percentage, but virtually all the main work is done. And I would expect that the application would be submitted in the next month or so. And it depends a little bit on the feedback, but I would hope within this summer anyway, things will be finalized.
And by the extension, he has a year to meet those conditions. Any other questions? All in favor? Carried. A staff briefing from Richard on the Development Advisory Charter of Economic Development. Does briefing mean it's short, or it just means?
This is we're going to try to be short, and our consultant Jason Kipfer from Explorer Solutions is also on Zoom here. If there's any questions with his portion of the engagement or report, but once we pop up the briefing, I'll get started. This is been a longer project than it intended to be. Part of it was we launched this idea of the county-wide community improvement plan a couple of years ago to build out an incentive program or a program that helps support businesses achieve the goals in alignment with the county that we have. And in order to do that, we had to set priorities. And when we discussed how to do that, to set the priorities for the community improvement plan, we determined that we needed to update the Charter for Economic Development to sort of help focus our attention on what kind of economic development outcomes do we want from an economic development incentive program. So that's how we got here today. Next slide, please. And so we contracted Explorer Solutions in 2022, and then we did most of the work for this in 2022. But once we completed that work, we had an election, and then we decided that we needed to wait and make sure that our priorities that we determined from that work were still in alignment with, or not contradictory at least, to council's strategic priorities that were set in 2023. So we delayed bringing this forward until we had those in place. So now that those are in place, we can move forward with the proposed update to the Charter for Economic Development. Next slide, please. So the 2015 charter, if you're not familiar with that, that was done at the county offices over 2 days. I believe there are a couple people who were a part of that workshop. They know it better. I was not part of that workshop in the room, but there were community members, business owners, a number of staff and elected representatives in the room who set that original charter up. And ultimately, that charter was a commitment to working together for the purpose of economic development around these ideas of trips and trails. So both tourism but also economic development around trail development. Food and beverage and supporting food and beverage in our region, and recreational lifestyle, which often requires some reinterpretation if you weren't in that room. Essentially, it was this idea of remote work that now we understand, but we didn't in 2015, believe it or not. Getting the internet in place and having infrastructure in place to support people working from home or working remotely, essentially. So those were the main drivers of that charter that was set then and has guided most of our work since then, for the most part. Next slide, please. So when we went to re-engage about the charter and look at updating the charter, we led 4 focus groups using in-person, hybrid, and online versions. In 2022, we were still being very careful about gathering, and so all of those focus groups were led by Jason and the team at Explorer Solutions. They used interactive tools such as Mentimeter. So even if you weren't in person in the meeting and participating virtually, you could participate in the polls using your phone or your computer device. And as part of that engagement, we reviewed the various elements of the charter, which included a pledge portion, the activity areas, and the demographics in there. Next slide, please. So when we look at the activity themes, these were all themes that came out of the charter, and came out of the discussions that we had with our groups. So each of these represents the engagement meetings that we had. So there's 3 lines that speak to those meetings, and then and then the 4th line is the average across the county. And so you can see that the relevance of the participants in our focus groups was very high for basically everything that we might be doing in economic development. And we've struggled with this in this committee, that setting priorities is difficult. Everything is important that we could be doing. And so then next slide, please. We looked at what might be a priority based on where we were at those meetings. And so we saw that trips and trails in local food and beverage remain pretty high priorities. But then the idea of recreation lifestyle didn't resonate in the same way as that perhaps some of the other kind of pieces of what we started to call economic infrastructure, such as workforce or having internet, being more clear about what fiber optic internet, recreation lifestyle didn't clearly put that across. So we sort of, in the various meetings, had different discussions about what those things might look like and might be important that came out of those. Next slide, please. And Jason was there, and he can speak to any of those if you have any questions too. I was there, but it was 2 years ago. And so we're looking at alignment with the county council strategic priority 2. This is contributing to the progress of sustainable economic growth and prosperity throughout the county. So when we looked at what our focus areas might be, how we want to approach economic development, we kind of kept this guidance from the strategic priorities in mind. So sustaining villages and hamlets, long-term protection of lakes and rivers. So even though that's not necessarily economic development, it's under this economic development piece. And it always has been for us. Before we really moved deeply into economic development, sustainability. Our department was the sustainability department, was it not, Joe? So that this is sort of coming out of our roots of sustaining our natural environment, supporting different forms of housing, which is new and something that we heard in our engagements with businesses. People didn't have places to put employees. If they tried to hire somebody, they didn't have anywhere for that person to live. So that resonates as well here. And then providing business support to existing prospective businesses and attracting new investments. So as we move forward into the next slide, we look at the 2024 draft charter as having these 4 themes: economic infrastructure, that being the internet. We see communal services fitting in there, commercial and industrial lands or spaces for people to be focusing and supporting workforce development, as well as tracking the progress of internet in the region. So it's a bit of a bucket for these ideas that make a business, a region attractive for a business to move here or to grow here. And then housing emerged and became more important, certainly since the engagement we did in 2022. Over the last 18 months, housing has become important for every municipality to consider. And we think certainly now that we're at the stage where we're at with the communal services conversation, there's a role for economic development to be playing in supporting the materials that go out in terms of attracting developers to our region and in terms of housing and also potentially economic infrastructure such as industrial lands that are serviced communally. And then food and beverage and tourism, which we're strong in the in both of the focus areas and stemmed from the development of the destination development plan. Obviously, tourism we've had its importance remains, even though we're not necessarily accelerating our current tourism efforts as a department, but we can have those conversations as a committee and as a council as to whether that should continue. Next slide, please. So, assuming that this committee is comfortable with the charter, both in the report produced by Explorer Solutions and the summary document that we included, we're going to take that to the public for feedback. We'll make sure that we drive people using Facebook to the Engage Frontenac platform. I've heard those comments through this meeting. And we're going to reach out specifically again to members of the economic community. So like our business community. Does this resonate for you? Does this make sense for you? Through our newsletters and through our partners that are speaking with businesses. So we're going to make sure that we get that feedback from those partners that are important to us. And then once, unless there are significant changes that come from that feedback, we'll then proceed to council for final approval. But if there are significant changes, we'll come back to the committee to say, we went to the public, significant changes need to be made based on the comments. Do you still agree? So that's the plan from a process standpoint. So do you have any questions about the charter for myself or for Jason and where we're going forward?
Francis?
I just have a suggestion, and that is to send this along to get feedback from the economic development committees that I think each of us have in place. I think they need to work more closely with the county. This could be a good starting place.
Judy?
Regarding the aspect of housing that I'm wondering about even the building of new housing, that how much is truly housing and how much is geared towards tourism or short-term rentals? Because if it's only towards short-term rentals, we haven't solved anything on the housing piece.
I mean, I think that's an important piece to consider if we're doing housing work, right? Like if we're going and as we move into the next step, so using the charter to establish the community improvement program, any incentives associated with housing we would want to be clear that it would be about housing, long-term rental housing. And there are examples in other communities where they've had that concern and set limitations about how that incentive would work to get there. But that'll be later in the process as to what kind of housing emerges from the work. We're really just trying to make sure that is housing important here.
Housing's important everywhere, and if you create housing, not that you're going to create it or this committee, but if people move here, guess what? That's still economic. The only other comment I had, I didn't know about that word of regional tools and policies for protection planning. Doesn't planning do that now? Do we need more? Or else we'll never get anywhere. I think that would all be through planning, I would think, for regional tools and protection, wouldn't it? Answer that.
I'll answer that. Yeah. So yeah, I think like primarily that work in the planning and economic development department would be covered by and supported by our planning staff. We've got those policies in place in our official plans and that sort of thing. But we might assist with some of the tracking from a tourism perspective. So like if we're looking at overuse of lakes and wetlands or some of our parks, that becomes sort of an economic development issue as we look at it. So that's where our role comes into it.
So I would hate to see another layer on top of a layer. If it's
Noted.
not through planning. Are there questions or comments? Okay. Do we need a? Okay, do we have a mover? Mike. Seconded by Leona. Any other questions or comments? All in favor? Carried.
Thanks, Jason, for signing on for that.
Thanks for all of the feedback there, Jason. No, just kidding. Richard wouldn't let you say anything.
No, I was here for moral support today and to answer any questions. It was nice to see everybody. Richard will follow up today, tomorrow. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Yep, thank you.
Have a good morning.
What do we have left? Communications? None? Any other business? Seeing none. Next. Next meeting, June the 5th. There's nothing else. Someone move to adjourn. Fred and Phil. All in favor? Carried. Thank you.